Gosh, we are in week 11, chapter 11. We're more than halfway over through this book. That's amazing. So, the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I'm having a great time going through it very slowly. I've listened to it a couple of times. I will say that coming back through it one chapter at a time and really spending time in what it means to me, what lands, what doesn't too. It's fine. I'm enjoying this process. So let's begin. Mel starts off stating that adult friendships are hard. I want to reject that completely. I want to draw a line through that in the book because what we think, what we believe, is what we experience. So what we're thinking and believing is how we're going to experience anything. So by saying that friendships are hard or adult friendships, doesn't matter, that is what we're going to experience. We're going to experience hard. So when basically we're sending the signal to our brain that adult friendships are hard, our brain loves to seek for evidence and proof that that is true. So I reject that. Adult friendships are easy, right? Let's view it from a standpoint of creativity, innovation. Let's look for ways to create new and build on existing relationships as adults. Let's find ways to have more meaning, have deeper connections, how to cultivate fun experiences and memories with people that we know for years, months, maybe weeks or days, right? So it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be hard. So again, I reject that statement that relationships are hard. Interestingly enough, she does say, every person I know is struggling with adult friendships. Well, of course, because again, your brain is seeking out evidence and proof of that. Okay, so we human beings, if we find a vehicle, a brand new vehicle that we like, right? A new color, a new style, a new make, model, whatever. We get excited, like, oh, I love that car. I just can't, I want that car. And then maybe you get it. And then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. So again, our brain loves to seek and find proof and evidence of anything and everything. So she goes on to say that everyone she knows is struggling with adult friendships, creating them, losing them, or even finding a hard time to keep friendships going. Again, really focusing on it being difficult and hard. So what is really happening? What is the truth? What is the reality of this situation when someone says that relationships are hard? What is the truth behind that story? What's the reality? And what's most important in friendships? What's most important in connection? What's most important in creating memories and experiences with someone else, right? Or what is most important in your life, right? So if you're struggling or having a hard time with friendships and relationships, what is happening there? What is really happening? What is important? How are you using your time? Right? So that's really what it is. How are you using your time? What do you value in your days, weeks, months, years? What are the distractions? What is eating away and consuming your time? What's taking priority or precedence over everything else in your life? She goes on to talk about, or I like to talk about chapters in your life. I'm not sure if she said chapters. I think she said seasons, whatever. It doesn't matter. Same thing. So chapters in your life, seasons in your life. I do believe that we all have seasons and chapters in our lives. And sometimes the page turns without us really having any say in it. I know for me personally, my first marriage I entered into and was blessed with a stepdaughter. a bonus child. Actually, I had no children at the time, but she was 5 years old. And I was really, really young. She was actually only 12 years younger than me. So I was instantly a mother at a very young age. And what's interesting about it is I took her to school. I had to take her to school, took her to school. I played the role of mother, and that it was challenging in the way that, and again, see how my language, whatever we say, we speak out into the universe, or whatever, however we speak, will provide us evidence and proof of that. Well, I do know that as a result of being a very young, I looked just like her. We both have dark hair. We had dark eyes, dark complexion, everything. Anyways, those meanie moms at the school saw us and saw the 17-year-old girl walking around with a 5-year-old daughter. And let me tell you, I had a lot of things to navigate. But what I will say is, in what's talked about in this chapter is, different seasons of your life or chapters in your life, and having similarities with those people that you spend time around. So I was 17 years old, and all these moms that I was taking her to school and meeting and being around, I was like half their age. So looking back on it now, it's funny. At the time, I just didn't understand. It was very difficult moving through that. I will say that so there was very little connection there with the other moms. They weren't open, and they didn't have open arms and come over and let's have tea together. It was very closed off and shut out. Looking back on it, it's funny. Also moving from Alaska to Washington, a few years ago, it's interesting how you have these connections and these relationships, and as soon as you move, they just like stop talking to you instantly because that commonality is now gone. Very interesting. Also living in Alaska for 30 years, surrounded by Air Force and military bases, I developed a lot of friendships and relationships that really were very short-lived, the 2-3 years that they lived there. And I found it fascinating how usually months before they departed, they'd cut you off. Like, it was interesting. I saw it as a pattern. Anyways, but she goes into talking about common or similar interests. And I do believe that we bond and we create connection over conversations dialogues that we can have with other people that have a commonality, right? We don't have to have everything in common. But it is true in relationships and friendships that it's having that proximity, having that closeness in physical terms. Because again, when I moved to Alaska, I had a lot of people just all of a sudden, well, she's moved, I don't have that in common anymore, and poof, no more. Cut off the ties. And so I find that interesting and fascinating, and she talks about it in the book. And I've known that it's just fun to read and kind of reflect on the different seasons and chapters throughout my life. I do think that when you have a deep connected, I use intimacy because I do think that all relationships have a level of intimacy in it. Oftentimes will take priority, precedence, and importance in your life. If you want to develop that deep connection, that bond, it's really placing your friends high on your priority list, right? Over social media, for instance. What I do agree with is friends oftentimes are my chosen family for my own personal experience. I do believe that family can be chosen, right? They can be chosen. They don't have to be part of your bloodline or what you're born into. I think that family can have many different meanings. People are going to come and go in your life. I like to use the metaphor of a train. Through my coaching individuals, I talk about that quite frequently, actually, and in several different ways and forms. But life is like a train. There are going to be people that stay on. Well, actually, let's put it this way. So your life is like a train, and you are the only passenger that stays from the start to the finish, right? So your train is a metaphor for your life. So you are the one that stays in the train from day one to the end, right? So it's your relationship to yourself that is most vital. And life. right? So your relationship to yourself, how you honor and respect yourself, prioritize those things that enable you to set you up for the best success, right? So getting enough sleep, hydration, proper food, proper nutrition, all the different things, is that relationship to yourself. Or as one of my clients said this last week was, what did he say? This meat, he's a meat body or something strange like that. It's like, oh, okay, meat bag, or I don't know, this human bag that we're walking around with. I don't know. It was fun. It was playful. Some of my conversations with my clients, they speak in metaphors, and I love that. So, but this relationship to yourself and your life is that train. And when you have a healthy foundation and a healthy relationship to yourself and life, you're able to have healthy relationships with others. Because when you love and appreciate and take care of yourself, set yourself up for success and love yourself, you're able to enter into conversations and situations with another person without making meaning, without taking things personal, without needing them to make you feel a certain way. You can just show up and be, right? You can show up and be yourself and be authentic and be genuine. So it's really vital to have that foundation of a healthy relationship to yourself and life. Think of it this way: when you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, it would be hell to be in a relationship with you. That could be an intimate relationship as far as, partnership, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. Because if you have an unhealthy relationship to yourself and life, you're going to be needy. You're going to be wanting that person to meet your needs, make you happy. And that's really grabby and needy. And oftentimes you'll see people that jump in and out of relationships in like that 1 year period, the honeymoon phase, is because they are very needy and clingy and demanding that they meet their needs and make them happy. And sustainably, that's not possible for another human being to make you happy. One, they can't. They can sure try for a year, maybe two, but they'll be exhausted, resentful, angry, and frustrated. Really, we all need to meet our own needs and make ourselves so happy so we can come together at the end of the day and share our lives together, become partners, and navigate things together. So yeah, a relationship with yourself is that train, the metaphor that lasts your whole life. So some people are going to get on your train, right? Some people are going to get off your train. Some people are going to get off without you knowing they got off. And you may never see them again. You may never hear from them again. That doesn't make it wrong or right or good or bad. It just is, right? Sometimes people just get off the train and you don't know why. And we don't need to know why, really. Some people get on the train and you have to kick them off, right? Before they're ready to get kicked off, before they're stopped, you might just push them off on the going, I don't know how fast the train goes, like 45 miles an hour. I don't know. I guess it depends on the train. There are trains out there that go quite fast. Some people get on your train and ride in the back in the caboose in complete silence. And they're always there when you need them, right? So you can always reach them, have them be a part of your life in the time of need, or be that shoulder, or be a phone call away. Some people get on your train and off and back on and off and on and off, on and off. And that might be just perception too. And that, who knows what meaning that is. That could be a lot of different things and a lot of reasons. I can think of a few people right now that have gone on and off my train. Like I've had to kick them off, and sometimes they jump off. And but that is, I think it's fun and playful to think of our life that way, and adds a lightness to it, viewing it as that versus making it mean something when someone gets off the train. Some people are going to try to get on your train and hijack the direction of the train and tell you to go left when you want to go right when the railroad tracks split. They'll want to hijack your destination and control it, right? Maybe vicariously living through you and creating the life that they wish they had, or whatever. I don't know, or wanting you to be happy to make them happy. And again, that's not sustainable and not a healthy relationship, honestly. So, I wouldn't want somebody jumping on my train and telling me what to do. In fact, I've had people do that in my life, and I end up doing the opposite. So, call that rebellion. I don't know. But some people are on the train at the beginning and resist getting off the train, demanding and dictating how things should be on your train, right? Telling you how to operate the train, telling you how to, whatever the speed of the train, and again, what track to take. Sometimes they have well-meaning intentions, and actually I think everybody does. I think everybody has well-meaning intentions. And they might be on your train dictating how fast you go and where you go and so forth like that. And if you really rest in the let them theory and understand that they are operating from how they think and believe in that moment, and it looks real and it looks right to them, you can offer compassion and empathy for what they're trying to do to you, and believe that their intentions are well-meaning. And that oftentimes will help you determine if that ride is smooth and bumpy, right? So the meaning you make of what they are dictating or telling you to do on the train could be a difference of feeling really bumpy and difficult and jolty on the train. As I talk about the train, I always think about my daughters and I, not every year, but a lot of years in a row, I would take them. So we lived in Fairbanks, Alaska. So it's about drive time, about 2.5 hour drive from where we used to live. But I would take them on the train ride to and from Denali National Park, or Mount McKinley, some people call it Mount McKinley. At the end of the season, like the last train ride to and from, it's a full day. It's like 9 hours there and back. I think we get to spend like a couple hours in the park, which there's nothing open. It's like crickets. Everybody's moved out. I think only like 3 people live there all in the wintertime. But we take the train ride and it's beautiful. Like all the tundra, all the landscape is gold and red and burgundy and green and some white at the tips of the mountains. I mean, it's just like the most beautiful time of the year. And there's like nobody on the train. And my girls, when I first started doing that, were really little, and they just run all over the train, run all over the train. Where if you would go during tourist time, you'd be required to sit in your seat for 9 hours, or not 9 hours, but I think it's probably like 7 total. So I would take them on that ride, and it's good memories. So I digress. So she talks about the 3 pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy. Kind of tapped on a little bit of these. I do agree with these 3 pillars. I find them to be very simple, and I love simplicity. So the 3 pillars are make a lot of sense. And as I was reading that and kind of reflecting on my life and my connections and relationships, I see how those can definitely help facilitate healthy, meaningful, deep relationships. So if a relationship with someone starts to drift or starts to, again, maybe they're in the back of the train in the caboose hiding, most likely one of these pillars is being affected, right? It's not personal. It's just maybe your proximity has changed. Like me moving, my proximity changed dramatically, right? So I lost a lot of Facebook friends and a lot of connections. She talks about also to develop a new relationship is about 70 to 200 hours investment to build trust. She doesn't say it this way, but for me, I think it's building trust and rapport with someone takes about that amount of time. I know when I read that, I'm thinking, some people it's like instantaneous, you just feel like they're like a sibling or somebody that you've known all your life, and you're just like, where have you been? We have just like this instant rapport. And then there are people that are a little bit more closed, have walls up, probably been hurt before. They might take 500 hours to build that rapport, that connection, that trust, that bond. Timing, again, I talked about that a little bit in chapters of your life. Again, being 17 and having a 5-year-old, taking her to school and playing that role of mom. I was very young and very different than what they were used to seeing, and I wasn't welcome into their circles. So that was challenging, being a mom, basically a brand new mom thrown in the throes of that without any knowledge, any education, and no internet back then either. I don't think we had, did we have internet? I don't think so. We didn't personally. But I also think that, it's about timing. Let's go into timing. Timing is the chapter in your life, right? So that's about what chapter you're in. What are you dealing with? What are you experiencing? And again, multiple times, multiple chapters throughout our life. It's nice to be able to have someone that has that common thread. Maybe it's the same age category. Maybe it's being able to share common stories, common interests, common desires and dreams and goals. Maybe it's sharing in that timing in our life of the challenges that we're facing and being able to lean on one another. Energy is the last one. I call it emotional intelligence. I believe that similar energies, right? Whatever you want to call it. Some people call it auras or all kinds of other words. But when you have similar or like-minded emotional intelligence, meaning, for instance, where we used to live, we used to rent a little place, and our next door neighbor, her emotional intelligence was very different than mine. Doesn't make mine right or wrong or good or bad, or hers vice versa. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that we were not on the same wavelength, right? I felt as though we couldn't communicate at all. Like anytime we could communicate, it was just not, we weren't speaking the same language. It's just, I don't know why. It just wasn't that way. It was very difficult to relate, to understand one another. So sometimes that's it too, is, where are you on the emotional intelligence? Some people get stuck in their life on autopilot at age, like she says in the book, I think age 6 or 8, right? You just get stuck there and then for your whole life, your emotional intelligence is stuck there in that pattern of thinking and believing like a 6 or 8-year-old. And that's really hard to relate to. It's not very relatable. It's not easy to communicate with someone if your emotional intelligence level is that of even a 30-year-old, right? So it's just like, it's tough to connect. And, energy is being able to self-regulate yourself, right? So emotional intelligence has 2 prongs. One would be regulating your own emotions, being able to be around someone and come from, I like to say, either love or fear, right? So you will connect with someone when you're able to self-regulate and come from love, compassion, empathy, understanding, curiousness. You can relate more. People relate to those people that are raw, authentic, vulnerable, and share that they're not perfect, right? I make mistakes. I'm not a perfect human being. People will not relate to those that are closed off, fearful of you hurting them, emotionally, physically. Of course, we're not talking about physical on here, but those people that are really closed off and cold and distant, they're not relatable. It's like, again, that's super hard to break through that wall and understand their come from and what they're experiencing. And so being able to self-regulate is really important. It's the second prong to emotional intelligence, is being able to understand another human being. Like, what is it that you're going through? Help me understand in a way that I know what you're experiencing, what you're facing, what you're dealing with, what you're worried about at night, what keeps you up at night, what's, being able to have an open mind and curious and listen, where you can almost feel what they're feeling or ask questions to be able to understand. So that's the 2 prongs of emotional intelligence. Again, she says energy. And again, sometimes you meet people and you just instantly click with their energy, or their emotional intelligence is in the same sphere as yours, and you might have an instant spark or connection. They get you, they're relatable, they have similar thinking, maybe similar beliefs, maybe similar values, morals, principles, and maybe you're on the same level in some fashion or form. So that's really all the notes I have. I felt like this chapter was really small. I felt as though this chapter, interestingly, and I don't know why I don't know why there's such a huge emphasis on relationships, other than when I listened to the podcast before I got the book, her daughter is going through a lot of transition. And then she divulges in this chapter about moving, and she's gone through a new chapter as well. So I think that this was just top of mind for both of them that wrote this book, because she wrote it with her daughter. So I think that that's why that was put in there. And it's a great, something that I think all of us can relate to and use and be able to apply the let them theory is to relationships, as far as people coming and going in and out of our life and moving and so forth like that. But hi, Linda. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's good to
Yeah,
see you.
good to see you.
Uh, and like the glow behind you.
Oh, yeah, that's the big window. Yeah, very bright. Well, I'm guilty of not reading this chapter because I left my book at home and my sister had a book here, but she had to leave and she took it with her. So I thought, well, I'll just listen and catch up on the chapter next week.
Aw, thank you for coming. I feel as though I'm in the room with you and sharing this time together. And, we can keep it brief. I can always end the recording too if you just want to chat. I've got what I needed put out. Um, if there's anything else you want to add about the book, we can keep recording, or I can go ahead and just continue and you and I can just chat.
Well, I'm fine with just chatting,
Okay.
catching up.
Okay, cool. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you guys. See you next week.